This is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for Thursday, March 17th, 2022. A couple things to go over this week. Remember, we're also live on Facebook Live on every Thursday at this time. So are live right now, on Facebook. So, and these are recorded, and you can get your latest version and previous versions of the podcast on anywhere where basically you get a podcast from Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and several other different places. And again, the live video is also put up on YouTube as well. So, little digital marketing news for this week. Things worth mentioning. Majestic. So majestic.com. Majestic, I am a brand ambassador for Majestic. I have been for several years, going on probably close to 10 years now. So Majestic has chosen to withdraw from the Russian market. They're no longer offering their service in Russian. And if you do go to the Majestic website, you actually will be able to, in fact, usually you can select the country or select a language. And for example, you can select Spanish or Italian or Japanese, a couple different, several different languages. And the whole interface and everything has been translated and, into that particular language. When you do go now to the Russian version, they do have a statement, however, about no longer offering their service in Russian. I have a blog post that I posted this week regarding their statement, and basically I translated it into English if that's something you'd like to read. It's on my billhartzer.com blog. So noteworthy this week also, Google Analytics is kind of forcing everybody to move to the latest version of Google Analytics and upgrade. They'll actually be sunsetting or stopping servicing. They're no longer tracking Google Analytics 3 starting in 2023. I believe it's March 2023 that they'll stop tracking. They want to basically move everybody to the new Google Analytics 4 platform. That's how Google essentially has changed the way they're tracking visitors, and so they want, that's why Google Analytics 4 has come out, and they want everybody to move. That actually is a decision. You have a year basically at this point, a year to decide, and so whether you want to upgrade and change the code, you basically change the code, and so forth, and on your websites, you have plenty of time. However, it's a good time to kind of evaluate whether or not you still want to use Google Analytics in the first place. There are a lot of our other options, paid and unpaid, that you can use. And so, things like, let's say Adobe Analytics. Like I said, it's a good time to kind of investigate that. There's not a rush, but like I said, I would investigate it. So Google Search Central Unconference has actually been announced, and it's going to be April 27th. I believe it's online. If it is, then I will probably try to get online as well and registered for that conference. Worth mentioning, and Google Search Central Unconference. So there may be some good information there that you can get from that conference for attending. So moving along. So 80% of SEOs apparently expect some traffic loss when they go through a site migration, when they perform a site migration for a client. And that's a poll that was done on Twitter, and a significant amount of SEOs did respond to that poll. My view on this, by looking at that headline, 80% of SEOs expect some traffic loss after site migration. meaning to me that 80% of SEOs basically do not know how to properly do a site migration, which is concerning. In my daily activities and in my business, I usually get very often asked to clean up after site migrations have gone bad. I regularly get asked to help with site migrations, and I've done a lot of site migrations, some for some very, very large websites. And however, at the same time, it seems like I get asked more often to fix bad site migrations. A couple different examples. Let's go to one example in particular. Well, let's see. When we look at the process, okay, when you do a site migration, you should not actually be losing traffic. You should actually be gaining traffic. In fact, there's a lot of opportunities that come along in your analysis in the process of doing a site migration that allows you to gain traffic fairly easily and make sure that the site migration goes well. For example, as part of this process of performing a site migration, it involves 301 redirects, and your job as an SEO is to find every single possible URL that domain had at one time. Period. That's what part of your job as to make sure you're doing a site migration. And part of that, it actually is to find that I mentioned, find every URL. What does that mean? It means go through the log files, find a list of, get a list of URLs, crawl the current website, get a list of URLs. If you're just crawling the current website, getting a list of URLs, and you are redirecting over to a new domain name and using that list, if you're just doing that, you're not doing a proper site migration. You need to actually find every single link to every single page that ever existed on that domain name in order to figure out what URL existed and what URLs existed, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Because there's links pointing to that URL. If those links are out there and it points to an old 404 page, okay, you should be redirecting and getting that link back. That is something that you should be doing anyway. However, when you do a site migration, that's a bonus, and you should be doing that. You should go in through archive.org, finding old versions of the site to make sure you've covered and finding old URLs. That's part of that process. So when I look at this poll that says 80% of SEOs expect to lose some traffic, okay, after site migration. Like I said before, 80% of SEOs are not doing a proper site migration. You should not be losing traffic. You should be gaining traffic. There are some situations that obviously are edge cases, and we could throw this, it depends on there. Sure. What if you sell your domain name to somebody else? You obviously cannot, the other person now owns a domain name. You're not able to actually redirect from the old domain name to your new one because you've sold the domain name. Okay. That's an edge case. That happens. But that does not, that does not correlate to 80% of SEOs, okay, expecting traffic loss. 80% of SEOs, I'm going to say right now, 80% of SEOs, obviously, if they have said that, if you have said, and you're part of this 80% of SEOs that say there's traffic loss after site migration, you don't know how to do proper site migrations. Come back at me and tell me whether or not that's the case. But I'm going to tell you, you probably don't know, or you're not. You may know how to do it, but you're not doing it, or there's something you're missing here, because you should not be losing traffic whatsoever. I mean, it just doesn't. The other part of this is, so I also mentioned I also mentioned bad SEO or bad site migrations. I've had to clean up a site migration where basically that it was I would say it's a site migration, but it was more like a web new web design. They kept the same domain name, but I'd still kind of call it a site migration, because an SEO firm or an SEO agency stepped in and redesigned the website, and they went ahead and made all sorts of changes. Well, they redesigned the website that they may have done some redirects, but they changed the site from using www.whatever.com to non-www. They removed the www and they just moved it over. Well, they didn't do all the redirects from non-www or www to non-www. They didn't do all of them. Now, they did the majority of the pages that they thought, but there were still live pages on the site that were orphan pages that weren't redirected. But not only that, they moved from www to non-www, but the canonical tags on the site actually still pointed to the www version, which was then was some of those pages were redirected. So it was just bungled. I mean, they bungled the whole. They just screwed up the whole site migration. Okay, and that's why they I believe 80% of SEOs expect that that happens, right? So we just got a few minutes left. I'd like to talk a little bit about a question that somebody had last week on right after my podcast, and about domain names. And they came across, an article that I wrote a while back about, where, and several times I've mentioned category killer domain names. Okay, so category killer domain names. And they wanted to kind of know what those were, what those are, and so forth. And I wanted to come on here and explain it simply. In the as far as when it comes down to the domain name industry and domainers, if you will, that's the holy grail of domain names, is to get a category killer domain name. And it's been mentioned in that industry, the domain name industry. This is digital marketing, so in the SEO industry, digital marketing industries, category killer domain name is something that is the name of a category of an industry, or it is books.com, or it is something that. If you look at it, think about it, an e-commerce situation, and Walmart and Amazon, Target, those, so they sell a lot of different products. When you go to their website, they have top level categories. What are the top level categories? Okay, it could be it could be entertainment, it could be it could be entertainment, it could be music, it could be TV, it could be, lawn and garden, it could be, garden tools, those types of things. Automotive tools, automotive accessories. So when we start to think about categories in a in a situation where you have a website and the main categories, those are the category killer domain names. Those are the ones that, are the books.com, the, sciencebooks.com, the ones that define the industry, our industry. For example, let's look at SEO, the SEO industry. The best one, SEO.com, things like conferencecalls.com. Okay, so different industries have different category killer domain names. Those are always, well, obviously there's, it depends, but there's also, there's going to be category killer domain names that are, the premium domain names. A lot of them will go for millions of dollars. Could be, in certain industries, they could go for hundreds of thousands. In obscure industries, maybe less. So that's the holy grail of your industry. So what if you sell bobbleheads, create bobbleheads. Bobbleheads.com is the category killer domain name. It's not necessarily sports bobbleheads or any keywords that include bobbleheads, but that would be the holy grail for that industry, the bobbleheads industry. Bobbleheads.com is a client of mine. So anyway, regardless, that really kind of defines, those domain names, and that kind of, essentially the category killer domain names specifically. That I hopefully answered your question from my listener last week. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap it up a little short this week. This has been the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for Thursday, March 17th, 2022. As I mentioned, the podcast is available on a lot of the major, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as there's a video that's going to be on that is uploaded to YouTube. There should be a transcription available on my blog. It depends on if I have time to do that or not. Also, we are live on Facebook every week on the Bill Hartzer Facebook page as well. So feel free to come on there each week. And at this time, which is 1:30 Mountain Time, every Thursday afternoon. Again, this has been the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer for Thursday, March 17th, 2022, and we'll see you online. Thanks.